South Africa's a movie. This is the watch party. Now, every single year, like clockwork at the beginning of the year around February, there are student protests over fees not being paid, students being excluded, and accommodation crises. But throughout years now, and it's been years and years, there have been almost monthly complications with NSFAS. And so that's why we really need to talk about the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, because we cannot just live in a world where systemically, every single year, students who deserve to go to university, but unfortunately do not have parents blessed enough with the wealth to pay for university, that they get screwed over. And that's why I'm sincerely very delighted to welcome on. He's only been doing it for 6 weeks, but the current acting CEO of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Waseem Carrim, is here. Thank you so much for being here, Waseem.
Thank you, Dan.
What a weird situation for you. Acting CEO, kind of able to talk about the messes and challenges NSFAS has had recently without having been there and done some of the purported crimes. Why did you accept such a hard stand-in?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I think in your opening remarks, you indicated the importance of the scheme, right? And if you think about South Africa and its history and where we'd like to go as a country, I'd say NSFAS is probably one of the most critical institutions for South Africa's development and for its young people, right? Because like Eskom gives us energy, like Prasa gives us trains that run on time. Sometimes, yeah. NSFAS is critical if we're going to develop the skills we need to function and grow as a country and as an economy, right? And if there's one thing that can guarantee social mobility, economic growth, it's a higher education certificate here. It's scientifically proven that getting a degree or getting a qualification will give you a much better chance of being a meaningful participant in the economy, both locally and internationally here. So that's one reason, right? I think for the sake of everybody, we have to have an NSFAS that's functional for South Africa. But two, where I'm really passionate about young people, right? I think it's important to have a country where we believe in young people, their capabilities, their skills, their ability to contribute to a better South Africa. And again, for young people to succeed, we very much need an NSFAS that's working efficiently and effectively.
So how do you even start fixing all of the things that I just said, Waseem Carrim, acting CEO of NSFAS?
Yeah. Thanks. And I just want to add one thing to what you've said is that, often we see NSFAS as a proxy for just universities. I don't want us ever to forget about TVET colleges, right?
Correct.
Because vocational training is critical, and sometimes we can get wrapped up in a very university-led conversation. And I feel like sometimes TVETs get left behind because a lot of the noise comes just from universities.
So what's top of your email inbox right now of what to fix and how?
Yeah, so I think there's structural problems like our IT systems and our own organizational structure. The fact that NSFAS sits in a ivory tower in Cape Town. It's not really with the students at campus, right? So we need a decentralized model that's closer to students. But there's two things that I've picked up that I think can already make NSFAS a little bit better as we head into the short-term future, right? The one is to have a better planning cycle here, right? So to start early now, and I've said to the team, let's start planning for 2026 now, right? So that we know our application cycle runs earlier. NSFAS doesn't function in a vacuum. We very much work with universities, with TVET colleges, with the Department of Higher Education and Training, with student bodies, with SRCs. So to have a collective planning and understand what are these challenges that we have every year, because you can't have the same issue every single year, right? And to have a bit of a pre-planned schedule, right? So that when students arrive at campus towards the end of January, early February, you have most of your planning in order, that when a student arrives at the financial aid office, they know which course they're registered for, that their first living allowance can be paid within the few days of them arriving so that they don't have issues with their meals, that accommodation's already been pre-planned, wherever it might be, that it's a safe, habitable space, so that we don't have this ongoing anxiety at the start of every academic year. So I think proper planning, just beyond IT systems and stuff.
But I'm kind of alarmed that that's a new thing.
I can tell you it is a new thing.
A new thing.
It's a new thing.
And this is proper planning.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't seem to exist. Yeah,
Okay.
So for me, that's one thing. The second thing is just being able to communicate better with our constituency, which is students, right? I think a lot of the communication that I've had with students in the 6 weeks that I've worked there is just a lot of anxiety. So my status is stuck on provisionally funded. I left my home in the Eastern Cape to come to the University of Johannesburg, and I'm stuck on provisionally funded here. My landlord says he can see that I'm provisionally funded, so if I'm not funded, he's going to kick me out of my residence, you know. So if we had a clear communication to say, this is the expected date when your status will change, your status is likely to change because of this or because of that, I often think we would overcome a lot of the situations we had just with better communication, you know. If payment is delayed for a day, which it shouldn't be, but if it's delayed for a day, let's communicate that in advance so students know. They don't anticipate money in their bank accounts, they don't get it. There's just a lot of, anger and upset about it here. So I think those two things already, which are softer things, they don't need ICT systems, they don't need money, they don't need resources, can already help NSFAS be a better organization. On top of that, we have to invest in things like more efficient ICT systems, like actual human resource support at institutions that will enable the system to function a little bit better. But let me make a last point. Nothing I've seen at NSFAS in the last 6 weeks tells me things are beyond fixable here.
Okay.
I think everything is manageable.
Okay. So let's actually just zone in on those two initial things that you said, because I understand the soft things that can be done quite easily with a little bit of discipline. The NSFAS IT software system is a disaster in so many ways.
Yeah.
How do you overhaul that? Do we try to fix the janky system that we have? Do we call in some computer scientists to build something new? Like that for me is that is the crux of this thing.
Yeah.
So if that payment, notification, and communication system ran effectively, then so many of these problems would go away.
Yeah, so government doesn't have a good history with ICT systems, not just that NSFAS is all over. Why ICT seems to fail so much in government, probably need a research thesis on its own here. But
I think they're still in that space.
the way I see it is there's two things we could do, right? So I think we have to plan for a cross-functional integrated system because, again, it's ecosystem, right? NSFAS doesn't exist in isolation. The system's got to integrate with institutions of higher learning. So, for example, when an institution uploads your academic results, the NSFAS portal is automatically updated, for example. When a student receives a payment, they can see on their statement what's the payment that they've received. I think that's going to take a good 18 months, and we've got to bring in skills that exist in the higher education ecosystem as well as the private sector through the business-government collaboration. But I've also said to the team that will probably only be ready by the time we get to the 2027 academic year.
Right.
For now, let's sit down and say, within our system, flawed as it may be, what are the changes that we can make starting now that we're ready for 2026? That at least we build it. ICT people are smart. You have lots of smart developers and analysts who I think can build in additional functionalities to our current system.
And have you been given the power to make those changes?
Yeah. I must say, we've got a very supportive minister, a very supportive board of directors, and I think there really is an intention to say, this is a scheme that needs to work for young South Africans, and we have to take decisions. And I must say, along the way, we'll make mistakes. There is no perfect scenario where everything works, But if you're not willing to take decisions, be decisive, then nothing's going to change for the future. We'll have the same challenge.
And then my final question, thank you so much for your time, is tell me about a decentralized model on actually having NSFAS dedicated representatives on campuses, in colleges and universities, to sit with students and to problem solve, rather than the current situation where you send an email and you pray.
Yeah. So let me say, I'm happy to leave my email address as well with the show, and I mean, I'm welcome. Students are welcome to email me at any point in time. But I think, again, it comes to a softer and a more empathetic view, right? And what I've realized is that we are dealing with students from marginalized and vulnerable backgrounds here, right? Who, most of them, it's the first time they've ventured away from home, right? And I mean, you'll remember, Dan, going to university is a big step in your life here, right? When you're the first person in your family ever to go to university, when you've traveled thousands of miles from where you live, the anxiety is overwhelming here, right? And the challenges can be too much here. And we're not going to get the results on the other side if we don't support the students in that journey. So part of a decentralized model is being able to be there to support students in person, one, in starting the journey, but also in completing it here, right? Because the argument that I keep making is that NSFAS has not succeeded until a student crosses the graduation stage. Otherwise, that investment is not worth it, right? A person who drops out of a third-year engineering course is treated at the same level as a matriculant, yeah, because you've not concluded. And if we want return on investment from the scheme, we have to do structured support to students to make sure that they're crossing the graduation stage on the other end.
Well, genuinely, Waseem Carrim, acting CEO of NSFAS, good luck.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us, I think. Good luck. Thank you so much for your time.